until I really hit that point and I felt very low. I wanted to end my life. I didn't want to. I didn't want to burden the world of me. I just felt very self-absorbed and that everything was about me.
Hello and welcome to the Go Encourage podcast, where I talk to real people about real life, trying to gain some insight from their life experiences and to discuss ideas around courage. Today I am joined by Toby Payne, who's the author of Health and Wellbeing Made Easy and the founder of Mooshoo.uk. So here I am with Toby Payne, founder of Mooshoo and author of Health and Wellbeing Made Easy. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The rest of the title is the 12 Principles of Outstanding Health and Wellbeing.
I'm really glad to have you here at Go Encourage.
Yeah, and Rix, thank you so much. I know that you're super passionate on this subject, and I know you've got such a wealth of wisdom. And obviously we've talked in the past, and I've always respected your knowledge around this. So I'm super excited to be here today.
Oh mate, that's mutual respect, I think. Yeah. So I thought before we get into sort of engaging the idea of courage, it'd be really cool for people who are listening or watching just to get to know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
Most of the time I ask people, every time I think I've asked people what their name means. Do you know what your name means?
Yeah, my name is God is Good.
Really?
Yeah.
God is good.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's like a celebration of God, and the name is derived from that. So I think that's really what it means.
Cool. And did you know that growing up, or was that something you just found out later on?
Do you know what? I didn't like my name growing up, so I didn't like it at all. And in fact, for some reason, I wanted to be called Biggles. I don't know why. Yeah, it's really random.
Wow, that is so random.
So, and I think it was just because I used to read this comic and it had Biggles on it, and then I wanted to be. And Biggles was this character, sort of like an RAF character, and for some reason, that's what I wanted to be called. So that was when I was about 5. So yeah.
So this character Biggles,
yeah,
was he quite, you say he's an RAF. Was he quite heroic?
He was heroic. Do you know what? He had like a mustache. He's almost like your typical fighter pilot look. Back in the day, back in the in the First World War or something like that. It was I can't remember actually the whole story behind it, but for some reason at one point I was really begging my mum to change my name to Biggles. Yeah, amazing. I don't know why. yeah.
Did you have an idea or an ambition of something that you aspired to be when you were older?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, I wanted to be a Formula 1 driver.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
what a great ambition.
Wanted to do that. But I also loved animals. I've always loved animals. When I was a kid, we always had lots of pets. So we had a spaniel, we had a rabbit, we had a cat, we had guinea pigs. Our house was like a zoo, really. And also my mum was very sort of free with that. So they would roam about. So you'd have all these animals just randomly roaming about. They weren't necessarily in cages. So that was interesting. So it was a Formula 1 driver and a vet. That was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to help animals. So, yeah.
I wonder how the two could have overlapped.
They could have overlapped.
Take the hamster in the car as you're going at 200 miles an hour.
Exactly.
Down Spa or something.
Yeah.
And where did you grow up?
So I was born in Wales, in Cardiff, and then we moved to Manchester. So when I was about 4, we moved to a small town called Little Hayfield.
Okay.
And then we moved to South Birmingham, and then moved into Birmingham, and then now I'm High Wycombe. So as a child we moved around a lot. My dad had his own business, and so we then tended to move around a lot and sort of following that around really.
Oh, okay.
But I think it was also a great experience because I just got to meet lots of very different people. It gave me a perspective about I don't know, that we have such local mentality sometimes. And I think because I got the experience of going to lots of different places, even as a child, I immediately noticed that you can have quite a sort of, a sort of local way of looking at things rather than, you've just got slightly different views, but we're all the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Yeah.
And in terms of family, is there a few of you, siblings?
Yeah, so I've got a sister. I've got an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. She lives up north. And yeah, she likes the cold, I think. I really like warm weather, so I moved down south. And then I've got my mum and dad, so that's my, yeah. So,
and are they up north?
Yeah, so my dad is, he's around Kidderminster, which is just south of Birmingham. And my mum's in Birmingham. So yeah. So I get to go back there quite a bit,
Nice.
and see them. So that's really nice.
Cool.
But yeah, they are, yeah. Yeah.
Did I'm going back to the F1 here now. Did mum or dad or sister have any influence over your decision there?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad was a rally driver.
Oh wow.
And so I was, as a kid, I wanted to be a rally driver for ages as well. And then I think when I was about, I was probably about 5 or 6. My dad had a friend, and he was doing kart racing, and he put me in the kart. And when I was about 5 or 6, I would not stop going on about it. It's literally for about 5 or 6 years or something like that. And then finally, my dad sort of relinquished, and we went kart racing. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. Really enjoyed it. And I do think, sports and doing things at a reasonable level, if you do karting, it is very competitive.
Because when you say karting, you're not talking about going to one of these tracks and spending 15 minutes a couple of times around and then you're done, right? You guys were like actually racing, weren't you?
Yeah, they were kart racing, which is, it's what Lewis Hamilton started with, and on all the Formula 1 drivers did. And obviously when you start kart racing, you always think you're going to be a Formula 1 racing driver. Yeah. And it's good to aspire that. It's obviously challenging, and it's very, the competition is really high. I used to also race with somebody who got into Porsche racing as well. In fact, he gave me a great testimonial for my book.
Did he?
So his name's Jack Bartholomew. He's a brilliant driver. I think you get a sense of inspiration from people who are naturally talented, and also they've actually had to fight to really be as good as they are. It's any discipline, any form of discipline takes a lot of effort, takes repetitive practice. So that was huge. Kart racing was huge for me.
Amazing. I'm like jealous. I love a bit of karting.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So you want to be an F1 driver, or you want to be Dr. Dolittle? I'm not sure. With the animals.
Confused child.
What do you actually do? How did that translate to you now and later on in life?
Okay, so what I do now is I'm an architect, so I design how systems work together. I guess for me, I've always been interested in the bigger picture of how things work. I'm not very good at just simple tasks. In fact, I almost lost my job a number of times when I first started working, because they give me like a really simple task and I just couldn't do it. And I used to get very self-conscious about it. But what I would do was I would think about how that particular task worked with everything else. And once I'd done that, I'd be able to do it really easily. But not only that, is I just knew how everything joined up and how everything worked together. And I think I just frustrated a lot of people when I was younger. But then as I've got older, I realized that was, it was a gift. It was something that, I know not everyone can do. But I really didn't appreciate it back then. It was something that that I learned that actually this is brilliant. It's helpful, and I enjoy that.
So when a simple task, if we could zone in a little bit, when a simple task came your way, what was going through? Was it not having the passion to do it, or was it something more than that? Was it not knowing why it's important, that sort of thing?
I think what tended to happen is, it was I couldn't start it without knowing the big picture. And I suppose the reason was because I didn't know, if it was actually worth doing. So I wanted to first evaluate that, which was, if you're like it's just starting a job, that's pretty, but I didn't, it probably appeared very sort of, maybe arrogant or something like that. But I wasn't an arrogant child. I wasn't arrogant when I was younger. I was very insecure, and I was actually very, I was probably full of quite a lot of anxiety all of the time. And so so it probably appeared like that. But actually it was just because I wanted first to really understand how that bit of activity really helped everything else. And once I got that, not only did I know the activity, I could then say, okay, these are all your problems. This is why this doesn't work, because, that person isn't talking to that person, or this process doesn't quite work because, whatever, so it was, it was always something that I know I thought it was not a blessing, but in the end it was something really helpful.
Which is incredible, and we'll get there of how you do what you're doing for Mooshoo as well, because there's a really strong link between you seeing the holistic and the whole, the bigger picture as opposed to one aspect. Would you say you're more introvert, or would you say you're an extrovert, or somewhere in between?
I'm definitely an introvert, but I do love, I think I'm a classic introvert because I do love actually socializing, but then I do like a break. So I'm not a huge party animal all the time. But in my younger days, I definitely had to be around people. It's not like I was a total closed person or anything like that, but I do enjoy the company of others. I think, again, when I was younger, because of my insecurities, I sometimes found it quite difficult to be around people, and it stopped me from socializing a little bit. And as I've got older, I've realized that actually I really love it. And what would happen is the fear would stop me from going out, and then actually on the odd times that I just found myself out, I'd suddenly realize I actually love this. What's my problem, sort of thing, but actually the fear was stopping me from actually really realizing that I do love being around people.
It's so good to get there as well, because a lot of people don't understand that their motivation is from fear. Sort of dance around the topic of fear and just go, I don't feel like it, or I don't feel right. But actually when you go a few layers down and you go, oh, I'm basing my decision based on fear, what does that look like? How can I address that? Have you taken the love languages test?
I have done that. So my love languages are physical touch and words of affirmation.
Same.
I know you we've talked about this before.
We have talked about this
before,
yeah.
And I do think that it's brilliant. I mean, for relationships to do that and understand your partner, understand how you should be talking to them, I just think it's really powerful. I'm not saying I'm brilliant at practicing it all the time, but I do know that as soon as I do, we just reconnect. And it's Gary Chapman, wasn't it?
Gary Chapman, that's right.
Obviously a bit of a genius there in writing that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like it's a bit of a map, isn't it? It's like okay, hang on, have I in a relationship, have I made sure that this person's love languages, I've invested something in there, and if I have, then maybe it's not that, maybe it's something else. This gives you a little bit of an idea of which direction to go in sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's almost like a bit of a safety net, because
that's a good phrase, safety net. Like it
because you've got like something to sort of fall back to know, okay, when things are going wrong, I've just got to remember that, and then hopefully that'll get you back on track a little bit. So I do think it's great.
I think the last time we spoke about this, you said you didn't warm to it straight away, did you?
Yeah. Actually, so Jackie introduced it to me, my partner, initially first, and I was not happy about it at all, because I thought she was attacking our relationship as if to say, I want to share these love languages with you because I don't feel like our relationship is where it should be. And that wasn't her intention at all, but I totally took it the wrong way. So we had a huge argument, but then we resolved it. We sort of, I realized that actually what she was trying to do is strengthen it. I think relationships are an ongoing process, and it's just constant, never-ending improvement, isn't it? And you can't just expect that your relationship is just going to remain the same if you don't do anything about it. So what it reminded me was that, okay, she's just trying to find to get stronger and closer. So it was a good experience.
No, that's good.
Good learning experience.
Excellent. Would you say you're more logical or more emotional?
Do you know what? It's a really challenging one. I think from a work-wise, I've got a very logical type of job, and I tend to be drawn to solving problems in a logical manner. but I am quite an emotional person, and I really feel I feel like I feel the room. I feel, I do feel people, and it kind of makes me, so I massively appreciate the emotional side. I don't think, rightly or wrongly, that I'm entirely brilliant at that side.
At the emotional side.
At the emotional side,
Right.
I think because I've always used my logical side, and that's always benefited me. It's always got me my money. It's how I've got paid. People have paid me because I'm good at that. And therefore the emotional side has dropped sometimes, and therefore I forget about it. I forget about things like rapport, or just, and I'll go straight to, right, we need to solve this problem. And it's obviously some people who are illogical, brilliant. But if that person's emotional, it's the worst thing you can do to them. You haven't even made any effort with them whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I've not always appreciated that. And I think, I'm learning now. I'm learning the power in a relationship. Obviously, it's just the same. So
there's just no time though, right? When you're trying to get things done,
yeah,
you've got time to get emotional. You've got to get this thing done. That's just me being me, but it is something that that you have to learn, and I think be wise about reading the room and figuring out how you can connect with people the best way possible.
How do you connect to people, Rix? What's your
what's your
logical
approach? Emotional?
Yeah,
I think I'm a highly emotional. And so but I am logical. Like, I like being logical.
Yeah.
But emotions do tend to drive the way, the direction I go in. And I think over time, also with a history of anxiety as well, being emotionally led, I think it's been order and logic that have helped me to build structure, and therefore bring freedom in those areas.
Yeah.
And so I think when I can cut through being over empathetic or overly sensitive about what's going in the room, then I think I can be a more authentic me.
Yeah.
Because if I know there's something in the room that's, drawing energy or bringing a negativity, I can be a little bit wanting to support or wanting to help or ease that conflict. But if I, one of the things, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but one of the things I found is, we're not here to fix everyone. It's not down to us.
No.
And so you got to let people be who they are and just be responsible for your bit. And I think that's where the logic kicks in. It's like, hang on, this isn't for me to feel or for me to carry anyone else's emotion. I'm here to do a job if I'm there for a job, or I'm here to be present for whatever my space is for that meeting or whatever it is.
Sort of like your sphere of influence. You've got to be mindful that, you can't, as you say, you can't dictate how people feel. And even if something's happened and they feel in a bad way, that's not always your fault. It's not your responsibility. I totally relate to that. Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
And I think it's that what did you say earlier on? It was pretty much there as well. It's escaped me. Never mind. It'll come back. All right. Do you make things happen, or do you tend to go with the flow?
I'm actually quite a big planner. I think because of my, I don't know, I used to call it an affliction, but because of my special power of being able to, my special power. Yeah. Of looking at things holistically, it means that I have to understand how things all work together. And that includes my life. Because if it's not, I feel like if I'm not thinking of all the parts of it, then I'm not living in a complete life. And so what happens is I then start to feel I'm not quite working properly. Parts of me are broken. So I would say I'm a planner. But then I think over the years, I think I've realized, I know it's kind of similar to what we were talking about actually, you can't control everything. Because I think part of my fear was as the unknown and uncertainty. And therefore I used to sort of try and think, well, actually, if I plan it and control it, I can almost dictate the outcome. And pretty much never that is the case. So although I plan, I do that to have a sense of this is the direction I want to go in. But at the same time, I recognize that that's not a good way to live your life. And actually, it causes more anxiety because you've got the uncertainty anyway. but then you're spending a lot of time planning and actually doesn't really have any value. So there's, for me, there's a sort of compromise. But if I compare to other people, I think I'm quite a planner.
Quite a planner.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see where that planning comes from. So you mentioned about being scared of something and then therefore controlling it.
Yeah.
Then is the intention or the layer below coming from a place of fear of being afraid? And so there's like two levels of fear working together, and then like you said, it just makes things worse, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I remember the other thing, by the way, it's when there's stuff going on in the room, is to remind myself of why I'm there, what's my intention. And it's a bit like yourself earlier on when you were talking about seeing the bigger picture. What's the purpose of this? And so if I'm in a meeting, I'm back in the days when I first used to be in a meeting, I don't know if you've had this experience or if it's common, is like, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in this meeting, I better bring something valuable to the table. And like, I've never been in a meeting before and early in career. Whereas now you're like, why am I here? What's my purpose? What am I representing? Am I representing an external thing that is not in this room and therefore I'm the ambassador for that thing? Or am I the lead on this particular part of the project, and therefore let's let logic kick in and let me speak to that, not to something else if it's got nothing to do with me, because everyone likes to give an opinion, don't they? But
they do.
If it's nothing to do with you, then stay in your lane, sort of thing.
I think that resonates. I think your first bit about the layering of fear though, I think I'm sort of tanging up, going back to that original, but I think it'll come back to what you're saying. Is that I think I used to be a planner to sort of control it, and I used to I used to believe that by having certainty in what I thought the outcome would be, then that would give me that sense of sort of control. And then back to the sort of thing you have in the room, I think you're right. What I think because of the fear and because of reliance on logic, because I knew I was good at that, I kind of failed to really see what people really need though. So, and that's taken me quite a few years, because actually people don't want logic, in my work, they don't. They want to know that this is going to make life better. They're going to feel better as a result of it. So the types of outcomes that I would go into a meeting with originally would be, I want to get this problem solved. But actually, you have to think about it in a different way. In order to get that problem solved, you have to get people to feel in a way that makes them want to solve the problem, or makes them feel that the problem and the way you want to solve it is right. And you can only do that really by emotion. So I think it changed my perspective. So I can totally resonate with you. And I think that it changed what sorts of outcomes I want, rather than just focusing on sort of a logical outcome, which I think that's just part of it, but you can't get to that until you've got through to that emotional aspect. Does that resonate?
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. And it's about holding that tension and sort of balancing that out in the best way you can, which I don't know if anyone gets right, to be honest. Like, we're all trying, aren't we, to get there. But
who is your role model with that, would you say?
I think growing up, I had a few role models, but I think I put people on a pedestal a little bit too much. And so when they fall, your ground shakes a little bit. And so now when I look at people, I think I like certain aspects of a person, and then that will inspire me. And then I'll remember them. I'll be like, oh, so-and-so was really good when I went to that meeting. I'd like to aspire to be a little bit more like that. And being the kind of guy I am, I don't know if I've, I don't know if it's okay, but I don't mind asking. Like, I'm like, hey, how did you get to that place? I'd love to learn. Like, have you got a couple of minutes? I'll buy you a coffee, whatever. Like, I'd love to learn. And what I found is most of the time people are willing to talk to you and willing to teach and willing to give you their perspective, which is awesome. Which kind of fits into maybe why I've ended up here doing this, because I really find it fascinating to learn from other people and see their life experiences and where it's led them. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That makes total sense. I really like that. I mean, and also because I always think that people think of role models as someone's a superstar or something like that, but I think if you find a trait in someone, you don't necessarily have to copy their entire life. And I do feel like sometimes we think of role models and you've got to do exactly what they do, or you get mega stars or celebrity sort of coaching people, and you know, it doesn't mean they're perfect. And I think I think you're right. The pedestal thing is quite dangerous, because you end up thinking that they are perfect, but no human being really is perfect. We're all aspiring to be perfect. Well, hopefully most of us are, but the reality is we're not. So I do really resonate with that. I totally I
agree. And you know what I mean, it touches on your words of affirmation as well. But I think encouragement is so important, because you know, as a society, we're very quick to say what we don't like, and that someone messed up, right? But relatively speaking, we're not as quick to encourage people and say, that was great, I really love what you did in that, I don't know why I'm talking about meetings today, but in that meeting or in that, I don't know, performance or whatever. We're really quiet on those things. We enjoy things, but we keep the enjoyment to ourselves.
We do.
And I think encouragement goes a long way, and it doesn't cost anything, you know, to say, hey, I really enjoyed what you did there. Even if you didn't like 9 out of 10 things they did, but the one thing they did do, you go, oh, I really appreciate that. That was really good. And I think what that does is exactly what you say, you know, it kind of grows that in the other person, and they kind of go down that road a little bit more.
Yeah, I absolutely relate to that, because I think as a culture, we tend to look for everything that's negative. You know, we are known for that. And I think what happens is, by focusing on that all of the time, we don't actually make it better, because we just focus on the problem. And if I think about the meetings we have, the first thing we actually look at is all of the problems, rather than celebrating everything that's good about it and building on that. And I think there's a lot of psychology on that, in that if you open up with sort of more positive aspects, I think you open certain parts of your brain to actually obviously focus on the solution, rather than, you know, just what's wrong with it. And often the thing that's wrong with it isn't really what's wrong with it, if you see what I mean. You know, you then don't get a balanced view, because people are just focusing on the wrong aspect of it.
Yeah, agreed.
So does that make
and you
sense?
actually kind of you kind of like, it's like an avalanche, because then what you build in society is hypersensitivity, because we're always trying to pick out the thing that's, you know, imperfect. Like, you know, Instagram. So I have a background in photography, and so when I'm editing a picture, I'm trained to look at what's wrong with the picture, and then work out how we can fix that, and all the rest of it, and then balance is this natural, is this now unnatural, which is not a good image to put out there anyway. But that's a whole nother subject. And so you're trained in that way to go, right, let me get that right. And what I try and do, or what I try and later on, I guess, in my photography journey, is that I was like, hang on, take a moment, have a look at the picture.
Yeah.
You happy with this picture? I'm like, yeah, actually, this is a great picture. And it really brought out this person's eyes, or I really like the colors in here. And it's that same thing, what you're talking about, you know, it's that gratitude, you know, it's trying to stir that, and therefore, you know, creating it's almost like a different path then, isn't it?
Yeah, that sort of appreciation of what's good about it and what's bad. I'm similar, actually, because of, you know, from a tech background, we are very critical people, and, you know, and I don't think it always serves us very well. It doesn't serve us very well. There is a blessing, though, in being critical. So, you know, you can't take that away. You know, you know, that striving to make things better is really good. But if it's over-indexed on that, you tend to, as you say, I think, you know, what you said about the picture, you know, you actually is good. It's not perfect in every single way, but it's still really good. So, and, you know, and then you'll learn from that, and you'll say, well, how do I tweak that the next time? You know, so I think life, you're right. There's definitely a gratitude and appreciation that if we build on that, perhaps that does, and that allow us to have more courage. Maybe there is a huge link with that.
Yeah, I think there is. So I've put together a journal with a couple of guys, and shout out Jamie McKean and Sam Phillips. But we put together a journal. It's called the Courage Journal, and that is 31 days of building courage in your life. And one of the key aspects of that is looking at the day that has gone. So it's designed to be used in the morning, and so you'd think back to yesterday, and there's some questions about yesterday, and one of them is, what were you grateful for? You know, what were the wins? What were yesterday's wins? Because then what it does, it forces your brain to actually, you know, encourage yourself and B, acknowledge that there were some good things about yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of what happened, you can pick one good thing, even if it's I woke up and I was breathing. You know, there's something about yesterday, and then carry that on into your day ahead. I think it changes your mindset.
Do you know what's really interesting about that is I can massively see the benefit of that, because the other day we had to take our little girl Evie to the hospital, and we had a really sort of on the face of it a really bad day, and then me and Jackie sort of started to talk about it, and we sort of said, okay, what was good about today, and what are the things that we can pick out which was actually helpful. Because on the face of it, we were like, this was just awful. We didn't get the sort of treatment we wanted. We were waiting for 6 hours just to sort of be seen. We were in a room where there were lots of sort of people who were sick and coughing, and we were worried about getting poorly. So we were really, we were not in a good way, and we were sort of struggling through the day with each other. And then we just said, right, how do we look back at it and say, what can we be grateful for? What's the blessing? So I think a book like that is massively powerful, and I think that will hugely help people. I can definitely see that. So I have got it, by the way.
Yay!
yeah.
That's great, and what a great sentiment there, because you are also an author. Amazing. I want to talk about your book, but I do want to ask you this question.
Okay.
What's a good compliment that you remember about yourself? I'm sure you've had loads over the years, but is there one that really stands out to you?
I think recently, I think it was a great and loving father from Jackie, and that meant the world to me, actually, because I think when you have a baby, it's pretty intense. When you go through it and everything changes, you're short on time, your relationship with your partner changes, and everything gets reevaluated. Your meaning of life changes, and if I'm honest, the year was full of ups in terms of having the baby and a beautiful Evie. I absolutely adore her. She's gorgeous, but at the same time, there were times when you're not in a good way. And when Jackie said that to me, it meant the world, because I aspire to be, a loving and good father. And so it was just really great. And then for me, then it sort of resonated. I must be doing some of those things right. So that's probably, a lovely comment.
I wonder if you have a system, or if you have a routine that you kind of have put into place to help you be more productive day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this really ties into my book as well.
Amazing.
So, health and well-being, if you really think about it, it's about your daily habits, and it's making sure that the daily habits are around, all of the key areas, whether it's your sleep, your nutrition, it's your fitness, all of these require something that you repeatedly do. They're not one-off things. For me, my routine is fairly regimented. I think when you have a new baby, it's sort of slightly...
It's a military operation, right?
Well, part of it is, but it's also a bit random. So you can't do the things which you would have done for yourself before. You have to sort of limit maybe those times where you would have a sort of a routine to sort of get you ready for the day. But I've kind of distilled that. So I have a cold shower, totally into that.
Like just freezing cold every morning?
Yeah,
wow.
2.5 minutes. I do my affirmations. And just say, right, I know you say wow, but actually if you think about that as being difficult and challenging, it sets you up for the day, because actually most things in the day aren't quite as horrible as that. But actually over time, you learn how to just manage that initial sort of shock of the cold shower. And anyone who does cold showers regularly, they get to that point. So this is not just me, you do.
Yeah.
It's just again, it's back to the routine once you've done it enough time. So I've got the cold shower, and then I do my affirmations. So I've got a specific length of phrase that I say while I'm having the cold shower, which lasts for roughly about 1.5 minutes. And then the actual cold shower, I try to do it for about 2.5 minutes. That's when you get the sort of full effects of it. Then I come out of the cold shower, I do Superman pose, I look at myself in the
Superman
mirror.
pose,
Yeah.
like
wow.
it.
So this
What is this? Is it that one?
Yeah,
or
it's
that?
power pose. No, it's the one on the
Oh,
hips. Right. So
nice.
this is where Amy Cuddy did some brilliant research and her team, where they found that just after 2.5 minutes, you've started to produce testosterone and your really positive hormones around your body. The other thing to do is smile. So smiling also releases things like oxytocin and a great load of plethora of great hormones again. So do that. So that's sort of my, that's my shortened version of it, because there was a longer version where I'd also meditate and I'd start to think about what I need to appreciate, all the gratitude. But because my as part of my goal, my shower, it has appreciation as part of my affirmations works. I get that from that. So what I've got is a shortened version of my day to manage, baby, a job, and Mooshoo, and writing books and things like that.
Yeah, amazing. So you're the founder of Mooshoo.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what Mooshoo is?
Yeah. So Mooshoo is about how do we turn health and well-being into habits, right? So the essence of having a good life is working on aspects of your life that you want to improve, building the muscle to get better. And health and well-being, like anything else, like a sport, like work or anything like that, if you want good health and well-being, you need to build the habits, and you need to have you need to build that into your life. If you can't just magically expect that by doing something for a few weeks it's going to all be better. This is something you have to, you if you want great health and well-being, you're going to commit to. But what I will say is, once you do it, once you realize that you've got bad habits, which we all have, you suddenly find there's time to do them. And even for me, even though I've got quite a busy life, I'm running a business, I've written a book, I've got a baby, I've also got a full-time job. I still find time to do those habits, and because they become intrinsic in your life, and also they're not big. They're not always that big. If you think about my exercise routine, for example, I always do 20 minutes to an hour every day. But if I only do 20 minutes, I'm okay with that. I don't put pressure on myself. Okay, I've done 20 minutes, and that's okay. So I make sure that the habits for me are all doable and realistic. But I still do them. I have a strong commitment every day that is a certainty, a must for me, because I know the value of doing it and why I want to do it. And that psychology around habits and things like that is really important. So
can I just say, sorry, that there's purpose in it as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think in your book, in the introduction, you're talking about, if you're going to do this, then decide to do it. Like there's no use just sort of reading about it and going, okay, that's great. But actually, make a decision, make a strong decision, feel it, and actually commit to something.
Absolutely. If you think about let's say you've got a bad habit, right? So if you've got a bad habit where you come home, you veg out, you sit on the sofa, but if you've done that for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, your brain is ingrained that way. The neural pathways have been set. So in order to change that habit, you do need a big energy push in everything. In any change, you have to be able to manage your state. You have to be able to change your state at will. And I think often people maybe get a bit confused about state. So the view about state is being able to create an emotion, positive, ideally, because if you do a negative, you're gonna have problems, and then make sure the intensity is enough so that it drives you out of the old habit. But to your point about purpose then gives you the why, right? So again, back to our conversation about emotion and logic, people are driven by emotions, right? So if you logically say, I need to lose weight, people don't just lose weight, right? They just don't, right? But if you give somebody a good reason, and they're going to do it to stop themselves from getting disease, or so they can be there for their children, so they can be there for their parents or whatever, they've got a really good compelling reason that wakes them up every day, they are much more likely to do that.
Yeah.
So
it's
I think
the story, isn't it, that compels us. So when you think of the word courage, what comes to mind?
I think firstly, courage is something that you do all of the time. I do think that it's something that it's a muscle to grow, and that, you should be thinking about how to almost invoke courage in yourself always, so that when the time really comes, that you can use it. So I think that courage is it's breaking through challenges. It's helping people. I always feel like there's a definite link between courage to help people and do what's right. I think that the doing what's right is important, what you believe is right, and that it's we all need it, and we all have it. And we all do it all of the time, and we might not always appreciate it. If you suffer from any forms of anxiety or anything like that, then in order for you to do sometimes quite basic things, or what other people might perceive as basic things, that is courage in its own right. And I think the sort of nature of courage is that it's highly subjective. For one person, it's everything, to do something basic like just go out and meet people. That is really hard, and I definitely can relate to that. If that's a challenge for someone, I used to have a huge fear which I needed to overcome, and I need to just get the courage to go and do that. Versus then just helping people, having the courage just to be different. Don't just follow the herd. Make a difference. I sometimes just go and give homeless people money. I just go and give £10 to somebody random. I definitely do it over Christmas. I'll give them more than that. I'll literally take out £100 out of my bank and just go and give to as many homeless people as I can find. And people sometimes, they're upset by that because they say, well, they're going to go and spend it on drugs and things like that. And I don't think that's the point. That what you're giving them is at least a chance. You're giving them a chance to make that decision. Now they may go and do that, but again, that's not under your control. What's under your control is to be courageous to do what's right, and what's right is trying to help people out of difficult circumstances. For me, so that's an example. I think courage is massive, and I don't think we should underestimate that we are always courageous. Living your life is full of pain. It's full of challenges. Everyone has to surmount. They have to go through challenges, and therefore they have to build that courage. Yeah. So I just it's a big word.
I think there's a lot there that you said that I can relate to, and one of the things I thought we could sort of hone in on is this idea of courage to do what's right, because if we go in the other direction, usually we would associate being cowardly with being selfish, wouldn't we? Whereas courage, to do what's right, you do need courage, don't you? If you thinking about that's interesting, especially on behalf of someone else. There's nobility there. Yeah, there's selflessness attached to that as well.
For some reason, you've triggered something about beliefs as well, because sometimes you have to have the courage to see that your beliefs aren't always true. And, we can often get into very fixed states. And again, in health and well-being, the reason why sometimes we don't do the right things for our health is because we've got very poor beliefs, or we haven't got the right beliefs. So the courage to actually, challenge your own beliefs and challenge your own thinking, which sounds, this is getting into psychology, but that in itself is hugely difficult sometimes. But once you do, you'll learn something about your beliefs, and you'll change and benefit from it, and have the understanding that you can be more flexible. And I think that's also really important, because you can sometimes strive for things, be courageous for something, but actually, was the belief right in the first place?
Yeah. And I think you're touching on humility now, aren't you? Because you need that level of humility to start saying, oh, actually, I might not be right here, or maybe I need tweaking in what I'm thinking, because I might not be on the right path, stroke, I might be slightly skewed, my view might be slightly skewed. And I think it does take that humility, that willingness to be a bit more self-aware, look back at, and I don't mean from a, self-critical way. I mean, self-criticism is a good thing, but not to the point that we were talking about earlier on, where it starts to, you're picking out all the bad things and not remembering the good. But I think it does take a level of humility to go, yeah, maybe I haven't got that right. And if you have got it right, let's say, then what have you got to lose? Because all you're doing is just putting it through the fire and seeing if it stands,
Yeah.
So, and again, it ties in, I'm going all off over the place, but it ties in with the whole cowardly versus courage type mentality. Like, insecurity would stop you from doing that, wouldn't it? It'd be like, I might be wrong. I wanted to ask you, is there a movie that inspired you to be courageous in life?
Yeah, there's two. So the first one is Gladiator. I love Gladiator. I've probably watched it a million times. Actually, I've got a bit of a confession, because in a movie theatre, I snuck out of finishing Gladiator for the first time, and then worked out where the next one was and snuck into the other one and jumped back in again. Yeah. So Odeon might arrest me after this.
Yes, you've just put it out there now.
I know. Oh, damn.
Oh, no.
But anyway, I love that movie because, again, which exactly what we were talking about, is somebody who's really fighting for what they believe in. He's had his family taken away. He's a soldier general, and then he's been put to nothing. He's literally had everything taken away by somebody who doesn't deserve it. And he strives constantly to have his chance to bring justice back. And make sure that people are aware of the sort of the harm that the new emperor had done. So I think it's a great example of what we've just been talking about. Clearly a man of huge courage, constantly trying to sort of get back to where he wanted to, or not even that, just actually get back to resolving the sort of original the status and where he was before, and so I just think it's a great, it's great for how you should live your life. And obviously he makes mistakes ultimately, and ultimately it sort of costs him his life, but at the same time, he sort of demonstrates at the cost of his life, and he's willing to put his life on the line for what he believes in, and the courage and to do that is obviously huge. And I kind of really like the quote, what we do in this life echoes in eternity. That always resonates with me, and I think it just makes you think, am I doing important things? Am I helping people? Am I trying to make the world a better place? If I'm not, is this really what I should be doing?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it speaks to legacy as well, doesn't it? What is your legacy? What would you like your daughter to remember you by, and things like that. And if you are spiritual by nature, eternity is a whole nother thing as well. And it's like, okay, yeah, there is a direct link to what we do, that will live on. Yeah. The second movie, sorry, I was going to move on, but there was a second movie, wasn't there?
Yeah, and the other one was Dances with Wolves.
Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all these stories are related to the hero's journey. I think, I don't know if you know about the hero's journey sort of thing. There's a common theme with all movies. This is why we like them.
Yes,
it's like the superhero thing. They're sorry, superhero, not super hairy. This is why we like movies, because there's a formula, but we can also relate it to our lives. Yeah. And I think,
are we gonna tell people what the hero's journey is and just spoil all movies for people?
Actually, yeah, maybe we shouldn't.
No, let's go through it. So the first act is usually you get to know the character, you get to know their weaknesses, right? And then the second act is, correct me if I'm wrong, is there is a challenge in front of them, and you don't know if they're going to make it. It's beyond them. It's beyond their capability of overcoming, right? Yeah. And as an audience, we actually don't know if they're going to make it. Yeah. And that's part of the appeal. Yeah. And then the third act is, it's interesting actually, I read about this. It's not whether or not they overcome the challenge, it's the resolve that they have about the challenge, right? And that's what makes it interesting. Yeah. In a classic Hollywood / Bollywood movie, they would overcome the challenge. There'd be a happy ending. The sun will set, fade off into the distance, right? Yeah. But I think society's become a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complicated in the way that they like to receive that. So now we're looking at how did they meet the challenge and what resolve did they have at the end, regardless of whether it was successful or not. Is that right?
I think so. A couple of experts. There's always a guide.
There's always a guide, yeah.
Because there's someone who actually, you know, they think they're kind of trying to do this, but actually the guy comes and saying, well, no, I think you should be trying to do this, you know.
Good old Gandalf.
Good old Gandalf.
Yeah.
And also the opponent, right? You can't forget the opponent. And the opponent is usually not necessarily the opponent that you see as the sort of enemy. I think there's a great part of Star Wars where Luke has a sort of, he's getting trained by Yoda, and then Luke cuts off the head of of Darth Vader, and then he sees the face of himself. So he realizes that his journey is not just about, you know, or it's not really about trying to do, it's trying to learn himself. It's trying for him to grow. So normally there's a sort of subtle twist in it, but I think that's why we relate to the hero's journey, because you realize, okay, you are on your own hero's journey. You know, the courage bit is about facing challenges and then overcoming them and listening to people who come into your lives, and they'll come in, and when you look at your life, you know, as you go through, you'll realize that there are key people who've come into it, who have guided you and helped you and said, actually, that might not be your journey, so why don't you think about this? And then that's suddenly given you a different sort of, you know, direction.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. On that note, I started reading your book, talking about hero's journey now.
Yeah.
And there was a phrase that really, there were a few phrases, to be fair, that really stood out for me. One of them was, how you choose to feel on a daily basis is probably the most important thing to improve on, because it influences everything. Yeah. I feel like we've touched on that a little bit, right? And we can come back to that. So I'm just going to leave that loose. But the one I thought fits in well with what we're talking about in terms of hero's journey and overcoming challenges is this phrase, rock bottom ignites burning change. So drawing from your experiences, and I know that you've changed. What was your rock bottom?
I think actually the rock bottom was a stacking effect. You know, I think I blamed my position in life because of my past, of what happened when I was, you know, as a child. And I think my parents are both beautiful, lovely people, but together they weren't. And I think sometimes they forgot that, you know, they're two children who are in the middle of it, and they fought a lot. And I think at times there was quite a lot of you know, sort of depression and sadness in the house. And when I as I got older, I sort of I almost had that habit. I continued with that almost depressive way of looking at life and all the negative parts of life. And I think, you know, I was full of fear. I mean, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty when I was at home, and I kept on that uncertainty after I left home, and I used it as an excuse not to live my life.
What kind of age are we talking about here?
I think with the rock bottom bit, it was probably early 20s, mid 20s, say, and I think I was really struggling with relationships, not just intimate relationships, but you know, with friends as well. And I met some really lovely people, but because the way I was, I didn't appreciate them, and I didn't, I didn't love them the way they probably deserved, and like they loved me sometimes, and I didn't see that because I was so self-obsessed with myself, you know, and didn't see it. I wasn't particularly nice as well to the opposite sex, if I'm honest. I did have quite a lot of relationships and short-term relationships and things like that. Not like a lot of 20-year-olds do probably, but at the same time, I knew it came from a place. It came from the wrong place. It came from a massive insecurity, and I just wanted to. I felt like, in order to fulfill that insecurity, I just needed to prove it by having lots of girlfriends and lots of relationships. And in reality, it just made it a lot worse. And I think that was probably because of a breakup of somebody who, you know, I was in love with, but I kind of knew they weren't right for me. But I also recognized why they did it, because I wasn't a good person. I'd focused all my energy on the wrong way of being, rather than being courageous and finding another way. And I think I was lucky enough to sort of have people who were trying to tell me what that was, and I couldn't hear them. I was stuck in that way. And I think until I really hit that point and I felt very low, I wanted to end my life. I didn't. want to. I didn't want to burden the world of me. I just felt very self-absorbed, and that everything was about me. And I thought, well, this is the right way to, I need to go. And I think, I don't know. I think I realized the absurdity of that. It was a good turning point, because you went right to the bottom, and I was thinking, right, I need to go. I need to end this.
Wow.
And I think it was just at that point, at the very bottom, where I thought, this is ridiculous. I don't need to be like this anymore.
Was there a moment for you?
I think, I can't think of a specific moment. I think there were a number of moments where I think it was probably the way I was around others, and I had a bit of an insight that I was a bit, because I was so introspected, that I couldn't, I realized that I wasn't, I wasn't nice to people, without realizing it. And I think the moment, would be, I think a friend was really telling me that I needed to, drop the sort of bags of my past. And I ignored him. I just, I told him that he didn't understand, that he was an idiot. I was probably really horrible. And I think that eventually made me realize that I was in the wrong. And I needed to resolve that way of being, because it wasn't helpful. It wasn't conducive. It wasn't conducive for me or others. So I needed to change, and that drove that.
I think there's a lot of courage in that. A lot of courage in that, because I think I use the phrase like a lot. I can't back it up with scientific data, but it's common, let's say, for people to be stuck in that rut 20, 30, 40 years and just keep going, whereas it sounds like you got to a place where you were like, hang on a second, the problem is me. And so now that when you got to that point of like, okay, right, something needs to change.
I'm gonna say something which might not give lots of hope, but actually at that point, I said it ignites change, because it was only a small amount of change, right? Because I think I couldn't do, I had this sort of much more grandiose way, a view about my life, how it would change suddenly, but it wasn't like that at all. It was much more subtle. I think I just decided not to just focus on the negative, on what was wrong. I just wanted to start just trying to relive my life. And I found that, there were certain environments, and a certain family member, when I was around them, would trigger, me back. Right. So I had to sort of think about how I managed that, so that I didn't keep on going back to a sort of sad state, if you like. Sure. But a bit of a side note, I this is what we're talking about as well, the sort of state change. Once if you've been ingrained with something and a way of being for a long period of time, it takes some spark, some high energy to just say, I need to snap out of it. And I think the rock bottom bit, feeling suicidal, is it's weird how that became a huge spark. That was almost the energy. It was the drive to say, why am I feeling like this? I have got lots to be grateful for. This is just not right. What is it? And I can't actually say specifically though what that was. I am, whatever it was, I'm hugely grateful for that moment, because it changed my life. I don't think if I continue that way, it wouldn't have been a good life.
And I think, something you said much earlier was around the states and how you can create emotion. Yeah. And I think that's powerful to know that we can create emotion. We don't have to always be in a responsive state. We can actually create.
Absolutely.
And it's about upskilling yourself, isn't it, to be able to create those opportunities for happiness, joy, or even just progress, even if it's not happiness, even if it's not joy, if it's just progress, that, okay, this is a step in the right direction. And I think, hitting your rock bottom brings a lot of credibility to what you're doing now. in terms of your book, and really exploring what it's like to operate at your peak, as opposed to, you know, maybe responding to what the world throws at us, and ending up, you know, as a result of our experiences. You said the word suffering and what that is. And so it sounds like, you know, that hasn't come from you reading that in a book, but it's come from you actually walking out what that looks like to relive the pain, or to move on, let it go. And I think you used the phrase your friend said to drop your bags, which I think is a powerful visual tool, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
On your journey of trying to work through all this, which I know links to your book really well, have you found some gold?
Absolutely. You know, I think that point in my time, rock bottom, ignited certain change. I also was starting to read and listen to Tony Robbins, who's been very influential in my life, and I've done quite a number of courses. So, you know, a lot of my learnings has been sort of around that man. He's a pretty incredible person, actually. And I think he's touched millions of people's lives.
Can I just say, sorry to interrupt, right? You I don't know if it was in the book or earlier on in the conversation, it's all blurring together now. Yeah. But you mentioned you mentioned sometimes you need to create an intensity of energy in order to push forward. And I think he does that really well, doesn't he? Yeah. It's like, you know, some people can see him as very flamboyant or a bit over the top, but actually he does that specifically for a reason, to create that intense or invoke that emotion so that it's a significant point, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think this is what he trains on the courses. I don't want to give anything away.
Sure.
But I think just you go into those courses and you know, again, take the courage, because it's a lot of time you have to take off. But what they train you is, and it's not just him, you know, he has his brilliant trainers around, but they train you about the state, right? And state is everything, right? If you know, with my rock bottom experience, my state was negative, and you know, the link to that is that, and the science on this is, you're creating loads of cortisol, you're creating an environment in your body that is really unhealthy. And at the time, you know, I was suffering from IBS, I was suffering from, you know, tummy issues and headaches and things like that. And I'm absolutely know that they were sort of caused by my psychological state. It's definitely induced by that. And as soon as I realized that, you know, I could manage my state, and it's taken me a while. And I'd say that, you know, karting again, I did karting twice, I did it again, and I relearned how to use state to get me going. And then some of the courses I've done with Tony Robbins really helps you fine tune it. And I think what's really important is that intensity, right? So, you know, having a good emotion is one thing, but being able to turn it up to 11 and really max it out and consistently do it and make it more means that every day your life, you know, it can get better. Yeah. You know, and whatever your life is, if you think your life's good now, if you can turn on that state even more and the intensity of it even more, and you've got that power within you, you connect to something deeper than yourself. You know, you can make that happen every day. And I think there's lots of ways that we can do that. I think some of them are quite personal. I talked about things like a cold shower, or you know, Tony Robbins is all about movement, you know, which is huge, and using sort of things like Rebound and the trampolines and things like that. Yes. You know, and with things which can instantly get you from the negative state to something you can just use and really just, you know, you can then decide what you're going to do. So state is everything. You have to get that going, and I totally respect Tony Robbins for really driving that kind of understanding home. And I definitely recommend anyone to do his courses or anything like that. It's an incredible experience.
Yeah. We've you know, we went from rock bottom, we went from the change, you know, what invoked that change. And then I think you made a really good point about it doesn't just happen overnight. Yeah. Like it can, let's be honest, things can happen overnight, but for the vast majority of people, it's subtle changes over a period of time, which I think is important. And then, you know, the whole Tony Robbins thing that we're bringing in here, sorry, I'm in summary mode here, is like sometimes we need to be a little bit intense or a little bit
Yeah.
extreme in what we're trying to do because it has a purpose.
Yeah.
And we can either speed things along or actually stop things from going in the direction that we ultimately know is not the right direction for us. So with those things in mind, was there a point in your life that you felt that you really had to put it on the line and take a risk, and maybe use some of these techniques to take that risk?
There's quite a few. I'd say writing the book and basically the first few sort of paragraphs of my book, I talk about my life experiences. And one of the things I wanted to do is make sure that was okay with my family. And if I'm honest, the first draft I wrote of that was very raw, and it was very my perspective. It wasn't a balanced view. It was, and I didn't realize it wasn't. I actually thought that this was the truth. This was the only truth, And when I sent that to my parents, I really upset them. They were absolutely, devastated. My mum particularly, and it took. It basically paused the book for a while because we had to understand each other's views. I felt aggrieved that my childhood wasn't like I wanted it to be, or what I thought it should be, and crazy expectations like that. Yet my mum thought, okay, I've done the best I could, and she had to deal with a challenging relationship with my dad, and she had to deal with another relationship after my dad, and that didn't work out as well. And so, I think it was really hard to send that. It took me a while. It was hard to write it because, you're bringing back a lot of emotions and challenges, and then the whole journey of working through those challenges and you don't immediately always see someone else's perspective, right? So so a lot of it was quite heated arguments, quite, animated. There were times when we didn't talk to each other and things like that. It was really difficult, and and I think we've come through that. And actually, the first part of the book is for the better of it, because it's written now in a way that it's not really a perspective thing. I made it about other people and what other people did to me, and I didn't see the blessing fully. So the actual act of writing the book and actually doing that painful experience made me grow, made me learn. Amazing. And it made me respect the experience that my mum had, and that she had a point of view that it was really challenging for her as well, and the experience she's had, and therefore for me to try and just see that perspective. So yes, it's an example of
it's amazing, because
to go through that risk.
I mean, to write a book is risky in itself.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the subject is, right? And then now you're writing about your own personal life and what you've been through. Yeah. That's, I don't know, let's say level 2 risk.
Yeah.
And then there's level 3 risk, is the risk of offending the people who are mentioned in your book,
Yeah.
That's a lot of risk.
It is.
Takes a lot of courage. And I guess, what I'm learning from you today is it lines up with a purpose, right? The reason for taking a risk is because there's a purpose.
Yeah.
We jump off a cliff, right? Because we want to know what it feels like when you fall into the water. I'm talking about jumping off a cliff to go into water. I should specify what kind of cliff I'm talking about. But we do dangerous things in sport and all sorts of stuff because we look at the purpose, we look at the reward. Yeah. And so with that in mind, your purpose for the book is to help people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I believe that there is a gap in the way we look at health and well-being, and that it needs to be done from a holistic point of view. My gift, my skill is that I am able to see systems from a very macro level. And I think what I've done in my book is I've looked at all of the different aspects of health and well-being and put them all together. So we don't just talk about, say, sleep or health, or food, nutrition or fitness. We look at them all together and we say, okay, how does this all work for us? Because you've got to do them all. And then the other side of that is commonly we focus on symptoms, right? So, if you've been diagnosed with, say, a heart attack, or you've had a heart attack, and maybe you need a stent or a bypass or something like that. Now, if we actually look to the root cause of that, we might be able to stop, prevent having operations. And if we'd done that soon enough, then we'd stop that. So I'm totally for symptom correction.
Sure.
I'm not against the sort of medical profession at all. I think it does amazing, and I'm hugely grateful. I've had back surgery, so I'm hugely grateful for it. But I think there are so many things that we could prevent if we take care of ourselves in the right way, and all of those things are available to us. They're free. It's not a lot of effort. Everything in my book is about how do you get the best out of your life, best out of health and well-being, for no money. There's a few things, the advanced longevity, which hopefully we'll just get a few minutes to talk about. But everything is just something you can do, and you can just do it. But the science behind it, the evidence about it, I've read hundreds of books, I've read hundreds of papers, science papers, journals. I've tried to just absorb everything I possibly found on the subject. And my brain is just the way it is. It tries to then join it together. And actually, again, I'm not saying, I don't think it does it consciously, that's for sure. It definitely is subconsciously. So what this is, hopefully someone can just pick up. They can start almost anywhere in the book, and it'll give them some benefit. And then, but it is more joined up now. It's everything you need to know about health and well-being.
Amazing. I think that's a great point to ask you. What are because you talk about pillars, don't you? So what are the pillars?
The first one is mind, physiology, and posture. Right. And again, I'll just do a little bit of a touch on the science on each one, really. Okay. Right. So if you think about posture first, we can trick our minds into being in a better state just by changing our posture. The work again that Amy Cuddy did was if you sit upright, if you just naturally put yourself in something that looks like a confident position, then you smile. It's really hard to think about bad things, and the physiology bit is what we're trying to do is create an environment that is fit for us to thrive, right? So if your mind is focused on bad things, on negative things, then that impacts your physiology, right? Because what happens is you're producing hormones, things like cortisol, that basically cause damage to us. So our bodies really respond to our mind. It's really intrinsically linked. And I think so. The first one, in my opinion, is something that everyone should study the most out of everything else. Everything else is important, but that is the thing. You get your mind, physiology, and posture right, and you're doing well. Right?
Foundational.
The foundational bit.
Yeah.
So, but everything else, I think you could start anywhere else on the 12 pillars, and you'll just grow and learn from it. But that one is really, really key. Okay. Then we go to breathing. So when I started,
I've heard breathing is important.
It is pretty important. Yeah. It's pretty limiting when you don't breathe, right? But also the evidence now on controlled breathing and things like meditation, it's there now. It's not something, a lot of people used to think it was mumbo jumbo for many years, but now, being able to calm your mind and allow it just to sort of relax and allow you to be the observer. It's huge. But also the effects of breathing properly. Wim Hof is a really great sort of role model, and the things he's done. He's known as the Iceman, but he's got some brilliant breathing techniques which he uses to control his physiology, and which is huge. And then there's really more ancient types of breathing, like pranayamic breathing, which is just huge, but they're really simple. They're really simple, but they're huge. Learning how to really fully oxygenate your body, and also flush out all of the toxins from your body. If you think about breathing as a process, it's not just breathing in and breathing out. It's you're breathing in, fully oxygenate it, and then I now need to get rid of all of the toxins, everything out of my body. So the CO2 goes, but actually it makes sure that your lymph system's all being drained and things like that. So it's driving so many things. So I think that's super important.
So that's so we're on number 2. That was, wasn't it?
We're on number 2.
So number 3.
Number 3 is food and nutrition.
Food and nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the science on now is it's been really bad over the years. I think and it's still not there. I don't think. I think some hot topics are things like whether you should eat meat, whether you should eat fish, whether you should be vegan, stuff like that. My view, and sorry, not my view, but the sort of things I've read is sort of push me towards that you should be comparing, not saying this is right for you or not. You're saying, is this better for you or not? So there's a great guy called Dr. Michael Greger, and he's got the Daily Dozen. He's a whole food vegan sort of diet, and that's what from the evidence, and I think he's really good because he gets the evidence. I'm not saying that everything he's pulled out is 100% brilliant, but it is. You've got that knowing it's backed up by sort of science. So he's got, he sort of promotes this idea that, vegan really is best, but you have to have a good balanced vegan diet, and you have to supplement with B12, which you'd naturally get in meat. And the problems with meat is sort of inflammation and, the practice around meat, makes it more likely that you're going to get infection and things like that. So so it's just a comparative. But if you can't get your nutrients easily from vegan diet, then you might have to eat small amounts of meat to get it. And so you're comparing. Then okay, I'm going to eat meat, but I also understand that ultimately isn't the best for me, but it's probably still pretty good. Meat is nutritionally pretty good for us as well, but it's not as good as a proper full-on vegan diet. And if you have a vegan diet full of chips, that's not good for us. No. And very quickly, the only other thing, a couple of other things is we eat too much typically. If you're a sedentary office worker, the 3 meal a day is just nonsense. I intermittently fast, and there's huge science on that, and fasting generally is massive. And then gut health is it's still a bit of unknown. We've got 3 trillion bacteria. You are your gut health. Yes. It can affect your mood if you get it wrong. And you have to eat right for your own gut health. And I think my challenge with a lot of the diets today is then, what you eat, firstly, you can base it on something like, the Daily Dozen's great, but you have to tailor it for you personally and for what activity you're doing. If you're a bodybuilder, that's going to be very different from if you're sitting in your office and just sitting on your bum all day. That's the very different type of diet you're going to need. If you did the same diet, you'd be obese. A lot of people attribute just the food to the Mediterranean diet, but that's not the whole story. Having lunch for long periods of time in a very low stress environment, which is effectively what happens in Mediterranean countries, they're really relaxed and they don't eat fast. There's no quick fast food. They cook it really well. It's really good quality produce. They have the olive oils and things like that, and
it's very community led.
It's a community led. So you're in a really great state. So you're producing all of those great hormones around your body. Guess what that does to your digestive system? It suddenly works properly. So I think there's just huge links with that. Okay. But that's in the book.
Well, let's move on because you're making me hungry now. What's number 4? So
that is sleep. I think the one of the sort of leading experts on this is a guy called Matthew Walker, and he really sort of demyths about this idea that you can live on short amounts of sleep, right? The evidence is really strong that if you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to have issues, and it triggers cardiovascular, heart disease, all sorts of things like that. But what's incredible about sleep is there is a beauty sleep element of it. They've done sort of experiments where they've seen people who have been deprived of sleep from periods of time and compared them to if they're getting a full night's sleep. Guess what? The full night's sleep, they look better, right? And they can, they've done experiments to see that you are attractive. So if you're ever in wonder, make sure you get a full night's sleep and make sure you do that right. And then the other thing is it's a big processing moment, right? So we often think that sleep is about logging off, but it's not about logging off. You're getting rid of, dead neuron cells, your memory storage. So basically, you're reforming your day, you're organizing your brain. but one of the big things is about how we manage social interactions. So if you're getting poor sleep, what happens is, one, in the day you misread social interactions, but when you sleep you actually process those social interactions, so you learn from them again, and therefore you get better and better. And it happens in REM. So during REM sleep you just get this you get this incredible your sleep is helping to develop your social interactions. And I often think, again, relationship back to mind, if you've got bad thoughts, or if you're focusing on the wrong sorts of things, then often or not that will affect your sleep, and therefore your social interactions will naturally be poor as well, because you're not processing them properly. You'll see negative aspects about the conversation that might not have been there. You'll miss the sort of social cues. So that's why mind physiology and posture is number one.
Most important. It's all connected. Someone should write a book about this.
I know they should, shouldn't they?
Right, let's speed through the rest of them, because I don't want to lose.
I'm so sorry about this.
No, it's great. I know you have a lot of passion for what you're doing. But we'll hit the headlines, and then we'll let people know where they can find your book and where they can buy your book, and get clued up, so we don't have to all go off in 12 different directions. You pull them all together
keep
for
them all
us.
Together, yeah. But then they can use that to go and speak to the experts as well. I mean, the book is more about, not just about bringing it together, but helping point people to, for a particular subject area, they know who to go and talk to, they know what sorts of things they need to understand to be great at it. I'm all for making sure this is not about me just selling books. It's about how do you link people to the right the right professionals, the right people in the world who can really help you.
What, are you an architect or something?
I think I don't know.
What's the next one?
So Fitness for Longevity is the next one. Very quickly, so this is not just about looking good. Again, lots of physiology effects. It's clean out your lymph system. It's huge amounts of things. I think the three top things to think about are making sure you get cardio, making sure you get your weights, you lose bone mass and things like that as you get older, and making sure you do things like yoga and things like that. So there's three things. And what I do is I just have, like, if I'm doing 20 minutes or whatever, I alternate and make sure I do that all the way through the week. So I'm keeping all of those maintained.
Topped up. Okay. And the next one?
Social life is probably one of the biggest other ones, right? If you think about your mind, physiology and posture, if you've got great relationships and you're connecting with people in the right way, and there's a great Harvard study on this, where they've researched over 700 people, and for the last 70 or 80 years, it's one of the largest experiments. And it's not money that makes people happy at all, and a lot of the people started out, they believed that they were gonna make their fortune and then they'd be happy, and it's all crap. And what they realized was strong relationships, that's happiness, and that's huge for this. The next one is my spiritual one. It's love, nature, and giving back. And I kind of reworded it because I think people have strange connotations with spirituality, and I just wanted to not have those connotations.
It's a difficult one to define, isn't it? But so you've defined it as
love, nature, and giving back. So it's it's love, it's being grateful, it's being compassionate. It's nature, which is about how we connect. We can often feel disconnected because we're not getting that sort of connection back to nature, to what we're meant to be. Feeling that is really important on a daily basis. Again, make that a priority, and then giving back is we are beings that thrive on giving, and in return we get things back, but primarily we should be just always giving. We should be in that mode, and I think if you can get your mindset fixed into feeling giving all the time, I think you get so much from that. And I struggle with that sometimes. You go into yourself rather than saying what do other people need, and I think that's huge.
There's a phrase in the Christian world which is, we're blessed to be a blessing. Yeah, so it is about actually receiving but then giving, which ties in with that.
Yeah, makes so that is so true.
What's the next one?
Healthy sex.
Okay, so
awkward.
We can give an hour to this topic now. Here we go. No, I'm kidding.
All right, so clearly the evidence on this is huge, and again, it's what we keep talking about. If you're producing lots of good chemicals in your body, good hormones in your body, that's good for you, right? So you're creating an environment which is great. I think the key thing about relationships is polarity. I think what we what we're doing at the moment in society is we're trying to make the sexes almost the same, but that destroys passion, that destroys relationships. And there's a lady called Esther Perel who is brilliant on this.
Really good.
And definitely I read a lot before writing the book, as well as Gary Chapman as well, Love Languages. But definitely I think we've got to be fair, but we are different. Men and women are different fundamentally, and we can't ignore that. We've got to make sure we're being equality, but we've got to just appreciate that. And I think from a passion point of view, from a love point of view, once we do that, it makes relationships a lot easier, because you don't end up either adopting a very feminine trait to please the woman, or the woman's then adopting a very masculine trait to sort of protect herself, if you like.
Wow.
So I do think that's another big one. And I think. Yeah, and also I'm not saying that necessarily you have to have one relationship. I know lots of people have beliefs on this. I'm very open. From the book's perspective, that some people just have lots of relationships. And again, I think obviously there's danger of unprotected sex and things like that. But if obviously everyone's aware about what that means to them, and they're all happy with that, then why is that a problem? Society has naturally said that we should just have one partner, one relationship. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it's just to make sure that people have.
We're gonna really dive into relationships on a future podcast series. So I'd love to get you back on that and sort of explore some of those things. That'd be really good. But we'll park it there for now.
We'll park it there. Yeah.
So what's the next pillar?
I can't remember what number, but it's face and body beauty. I think this one, just very quickly, just be really careful about what you put on your skin. It's the biggest organ, and there are a lot of chemicals out there which are very not great for us. I think there are now some manufacturers who do more skin-like types of substances.
Okay.
So pick them.
Just look out for that. Okay.
Yeah. And then the next one is brain health. I sort of differentiate that from mind in the more like the functioning of the brain. So in the book, I talk about all the different areas and what you can do specifically for those areas. If you're going to improve your memory, those sorts of things. I think the main thing about brain health is actually social. Your brain needs to be challenged. If you want to avoid Alzheimer's, challenge it. Therapy and coaching.
Would the avoid Alzheimer's, and just, are you talking about just keeping active, making sure your cognitive function
make it a habit every single day to challenge your brain, right? I think courage is a really good sort of view for this, because it's pushing your brain to work out how do I push something forward. So it's actually making sure that your brain is thinking in a way, how do I push through that? That's a great example of it. What do I need to get past? What obstacle do I need to close? Don't stay where you are. And I think that's what your brain needs. It thrives from change. Therapy and coaching. I think this is often missed because, and especially, we need external input. We need people to see our blind spots, right? So if you're in a bad way and you don't even recognize it or can't see it, you need someone else to repoint you in the right direction. So coaching, I think, is really huge. I think we should all have a coach. I have a coach, and she is really good at just directing me in the right direction. She helped me in my book hugely. And then therapy, all kinds of therapy, right? If it's therapy for psychology, or if it's therapy for your muscles and things like that, all of those you need. And having regular checkups will just ensure that your body's in tip-top state. So make sure that, I think that's a big one as well. Finally, advanced longevity.
Interesting.
This one is kind of like, it excites me, right? So all the other ones you can just do, right? The book is really, everything is free. This one is probably more advanced.
Okay.
Things in this one are things like cold showers. But a lot of this is about something which we all naturally have, is our ability to restore our own DNA. There are now supplements out there which they're still going through sort of certain human trials and make sure that they're all safe and stuff like that, but they stimulate something that we all have, which is recovering our DNA. And of course, if your DNA is restored, aging is the process of how we produce cells, so our
That's
cells are
right.
always replicating. Now, if your DNA is corrupted, every time you replicate a cell, then basically that cell is corrupted. So over time, what happens is the more DNA damage you get, the more corrupted cells you get, and therefore you age because of the consequence of that. So these supplements are great for restoring your DNA and then effectively reversing your aging process, or at least stopping it being so prolific.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and you're getting to the root cause, rather than the symptoms of problems. You can solve it that way, and there's natural ways you can do it, like fasting and cold showers and things like that, which are naturally inducing you into a sort of state of stress, and therefore inducing these types of proteins. So those are the 12
amazing.
pillars.
Wow, 12 pillars.
Yeah, I mean, there's more to advanced longevity, obviously. But,
yeah, absolutely. And so, oh my gosh, there's so much to go through there. But so if people wanted to get a copy of your book, where would they go?
Yeah. At the moment, they go to Amazon, and we'll put the link up for Amazon.
Is that global? Is it just in the UK? Is it US?
Yeah, it's UK and US, so you can get it from there. At the moment, it's just the Kindle version. I'm going to be releasing the paperback in the next few weeks.
Amazing.
So you can get a copy. And the other thing about it, at the back of it, is my sort of habit plan. It's what I do. So for each of the 12 pillars, and you'll be surprised how little time it'll take you in the day.
As in your personal habit?
It's mostly my personal habits.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you have to follow it.
Sure.
And in the book, there are loads of other examples. It's a continuous process. It's not just do one thing and then you resolve it. It's a continuous process.
Where would be the best place online to find out more about what you're about, what you're doing, your platform?
Yeah, so my platform is Mooshoo. So Mooshoo is, it means something where you're just squeezing a bit more from life. I'm not quite sure where the word originated. I know, but yeah, for me, it's just, that's what it means to me. So basically go to www.mooshoo.uk. And again, it's hopefully just an easy website where you can just say, right, if I want to improve one of the areas, what's the sort of steps, what's the science behind it, what do I need to do? And then we do sell products on there, so that that we've got related products to each of the category areas. And then you can really improve from there.
Brilliant. So Mooshoo is the platform. Amazon has your book, which I've just started reading, and I'm really getting a lot from it. So thank you so much for putting it out there. And then if people wanted to get in touch with you directly, would they able to do that via a social media platform? Are you active anywhere?
I'm active in pretty much all, so if you type in Mooshoo anywhere, you can get hold of me. You can use my email for Mooshoo. It's info@mooshoo.uk. So if you want more information, you can get that to you. But we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we are on Pinterest, and we're on Twitter. So we're on pretty much most of the major platforms.
Brilliant.
So you can get hold of me from there.
Excellent. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today. You've given me a lot to think about, and I love that you've signposted your book and your website. So if people do want to kind of delve in a little bit more and sort of explore some of the stuff that you've been doing, they've got the opportunity to do that. So thank you for that as well. And I think you've already said it. You'll come back, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You'll come back. I really want to get your insight into the relationship part, both romantic relationship. We talked about healthy sex. I think that's a big part of
you
relationship.
really want to delve into that?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's a subject. We're running out of time now, but it's a subject that there's a lot of unhealthy stuff out there. So I think it's good to bring health and be courageous and step
and also
into that.
it's not one size that fits all. I think we've got to get away from that mindset. It's just what people need. It's what they personally need, and as long as they're doing the right way.
I'm going to pause you because I don't want to give away anything. We want to save that for the next podcast,
fine.
right? But so that'd be good. And then also, as part of relationships, you're a dad, so it'd be really interesting to kind of unpack some of that and some of the courageous steps that you've had to take to get there. So thanks again. Yeah,
and Rix, can I just say thank you very much for for having me on your podcast. I also think that what you're doing is courageous. I think it's brilliant, and I think people are going to learn a huge amounts from your interviews and the help you're going to give to people. So so I want to thank you as well for just being brilliant with that, because and I think generally this is going to be something that will change people's lives. So courage is definitely something that we all should have a bit of and keep building. So thank you very much, Rix, as well.
Oh, mate, I'm blessed to hear that. We words of affirmation is both of our love languages. Besides physical touch, I'm going to give you a hug.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I hope you guys got something out of that. I'm sure you did. Do get in touch with Toby if you've got more questions around some of the topics that he talked about. And whatever you do in life, go encourage. Really hope you enjoyed that conversation. If you did, do let us know in the comments, or you can connect with us via our social media channels, where the links are available on www.goencourage.com. If you haven't already, you can now get a copy of the Courage Journal that we've put together to help you build courage on a day-to-day basis. We have a paperback version and a hardback version as well. Links are on the website. You can purchase these in the UK, the US, Australia, Canada, and all across Europe. So go and have a look at that. I think it's going to be a really valuable resource. All right, so until the next time, whatever you're doing, keep moving forward and go encourage.